ago. She fell madly in love with a man named David. He was her high school sweetheart and was the man in her mind she had hoped to marry. Things did not work out that way. Now, 20 years later, Diana says that all she wants is one more chance to see him again. Take us back 20 years. You were like 14 years old?
Well, 20 years ago, I was 17.
All right.
We met when we were 14 years old. We rode the school bus home together, and and he walked me home and would walk me in my door, and we'd go in my room and listen to Beatles records. And
I'm beginning to relate. It was the Beatles that kept you together, right?
Well, actually, the first time he dumped me, our song was "We Can Work It Out." So I was trying to get him back.
How did he dump you?
For someone else.
Okay, like who?
Should I say her name?
No, you don't have to say her name, but what was she, another girl in the class?
Cheerleader.
Blonde cheerleader, that's good enough. Could be. And he wanted 20 million blonde cheerleaders. So he had a choice between you and the blonde cheerleader. Were you in high school or junior high?
We were in, let's see, he and I first got together in our freshman year of high school, and we were together during the summer after our freshman year. Beginning of our sophomore year was when he dumped me.
All right. I know you, what happened after that?
I moved away about 3 months later. I moved to Sarasota, Florida, which is where I've remained for 23 years.
Yeah.
And moved out of the house in the middle of my senior year. And 3 weeks after moving out on my own, I looked him up. I had moved away. I was gone, but he was not forgotten.
Okay. So, you were how old then?
I was
because we got 14,
17.
and now we're in 17, and you looked him up.
Right. I looked him up in February of '76. Located him. He had been in the military. He was stationed at the Naval Training Center in Great Lakes, Illinois. And I found him. And he came down for a week on his leave the last week of February of '76. And it happened all over again. So.
What happened all over again?
We rekindled what unkindled years before.
Yeah, did it.
Aha. You're right, y'all did it. Then what happened?
We did it again.
All right, and?
Again? I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, like, he's not still with you, so something had to have happened.
No, he went back up. We went to Disney World, and he proposed, and I accepted. And he went away the 1st of March back to the training center. And I was to join him up there after I graduated from Sarasota High School in June of '76.
Okay.
Things changed between then.
Who got cold feet?
He did.
He did. All right, so now you were dumped once for the cheerleader and once for the cold feet. Mm-hmm. And did you ever see him again from then till now? You've never seen him again. He was never in your life again. Never came around. That's it. And you've been thinking about him since you were a high school graduate? Oh, you're not going to cry on me. Wait. Oh, why does everybody do this? Here. Oh, my dear. This is now 20 years later. Did you get married?
Not to him.
No. But did you get married to somebody else?
Twice, yes.
It
took 5 years to get pretty much over him before I would trust
somebody able to get over her high school sweetheart, whose name is Clark. Vicki says the love story is a very painful one. Both Vicki and Clark have spent 23 years missing one opportunity after another. Like I was a never had, she was, they kept coming. They tried to rekindle what they both feel is a very deep and true love, but it just never had a chance to develop. You haven't seen him in 23 years.
Right.
You told us that he's someone you always loved.
I always did, even though we weren't lovers or boyfriends, really, or girlfriends. We grew up together ever since I was about 11 years old, the first time I met him. And I met him at the country club swimming pool, and he basically was a 13-year-old brat that always dunked you, you know, and swatted the towel at you, and I couldn't stand him, but I loved the attention.
Sure.
And so we always were friends, and then in high school, he was a junior and I was a freshman, and he asked me to go to prom. And I thought, well, he feels sorry for me. You know, he can ask anybody, but he feels sorry for me. So I went, and didn't know that it was probably really exciting for him. And I thought, well, that was about it. We didn't really date much after that. But he dated all my girlfriends. And
he dated all your girlfriends,
yeah,
but not
he dated
you.
all my girlfriends, but not me. Yeah. And the reason he said, because some way he wanted to be close to me, but he didn't want to hurt me, and he was afraid of how he felt. And yet he was a teenager and didn't really want that commitment, and I guess it scared him. So he would call me on the telephone and talk to me about his problems with whatever girlfriend he was dating. So I figured we were just buds. And then as he went off and I went off, and during graduation, he was 2 years older than I am, he went to Vietnam. And I went to San Francisco with a rock group. So we would just, split ends like that. And I didn't see him then for a while.
What happened in San Francisco?
Oh, well.
You ran away with a rock band?
Yeah. I came back with a baby.
Oh.
And being married, and I was married for a very short time. And then I had a child, and I came back.
And he went off to Vietnam?
Yes. And so then I didn't have any contact with him at all when he was in Vietnam, and it was, I didn't know what was going on in his life. I was just pretty much doing my own thing and trying to straighten my own life out. When I came back to Illinois, where we were originally from, he had this feeling, I don't remember where he was, but he had this feeling that he had to call me and get in touch with me. And that's what we were always like. We have this, some kind of connection that we just know we need to speak to each other. And he called me and says, I'm on my way. And I told him where I lived, because I had just gotten back and had an apartment set up. And he was on my doorstep at 4:30 in the morning. And so he never left. I mean, he stayed in, moved in together. And my parents found out about it, and and they were over there. They came over to the house in no time at all, saying that you've just been through one mess, you don't need this. And we at that time had talked about getting together and getting married, and he was great with my son. He just kind of moved in and took over and helped me, and it just didn't quite work. What happened was...
Your parents talked him out of it? Or talked you out of it?
No, it was a confrontation. Basically what happened is they came over to the house, my apartment, and it was my grandmother and my mother were just, so my grandmother wanted to shoot him, bless her soul. She was like...
Because of the rock musician and the baby and the whole thing.
And the whole thing.
So here's another guy just back from Vietnam, no job probably, right?
Right.
So they marched him out of there?
My dad came over. My dad was always a peacemaker, and he came over and says, look, we're going to take you home. So he talked...
Heart has not been intact ever since. Now I have here on my notes that you thought he had a really nice rear end and beautiful brown eyes. Was it in that order? The nice rear end and the brown eyes, or did you look for the brown eyes first?
The rear end and the brown eyes.
In that order, all right.
Yeah.
Now, it's been 9 years since you were together. Is this your high school sweetheart?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You said you'd marry him in a heartbeat if you ever saw him again. Tell me about the relationship with Ken.
Okay. When we met, I was real good friends with his brother. And his brother went and told him, the night that I finally told him that I had a crush on him, that I liked him. And he came in school the next day, came up behind me with a note, had his class ring wrapped around the note, and handed it to me from behind and wrote me a letter and told me that he liked me too. And
what grade were you in?
I was in 10th, he was in the 11th.
Okay.
And he was the type of person, we would go everywhere together, and you very seldom saw us apart.
Then what happened?
Well, my parents had went through my things in my room and found out that me and him were sleeping together.
You lost your virginity with each other, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and your
ma'am.
mother read that in your diary.
Mm-hmm.
Out, she said. Out, out, out.
She was not happy.
No.
And after they found all this out, they basically forbid us to see each other anymore. And as far as I know, he's married now. But I'd like to see him just to
be able to have the chance to tell him bye.
What did you want to tell him, though? You know, it doesn't always work out. Did you, after school, when Mother said bye, you never saw each other again?
Mm-mm.
You haven't seen each other in a long time. Did you marry?
No, I've never married.
Why?
I just haven't been able to find anybody like him that measures up to him.
What is so special about him?
He always accepted me for who I was, never wanted me to change. He always opened the doors for me. He would send flowers for no reason. And every chance he got, he told me he loved me. You know, it's just, you can't find anybody like him.
All right, if he's out there, what would you like him to know?
I would like him to know that I'm sorry for all the things that my parents put him.
Love either. But she didn't meet him in high school. She didn't meet him in college. She didn't meet him in the neighborhood. She didn't meet him. They fell in love over the telephone, sight unseen. So now she wants to check this dude out face to face and see if this is really the man of her dreams. So here's what we've done. We have sent Holly's telephone Romeo, James, to a secluded area. He thinks he's here to be reunited with someone from his past who has a secret crush on him. Holly wanted to surprise him. We'll bring him out in a few minutes. Let's hear from Holly and find out how this romance got started.
Okay.
What happened?
Well, I worked for a software company, and I was a customer support representative. And I would take inbound phone calls from people with problems with their computers. And every once in a while, I would get one person, and he would only request me. So after a while, the problems just started to get fewer, and he would be like, "Hey, what's going on? And how you doing?" I'd be like, "Good, you know, I'm kind of busy." And he'd call me like 3 or 4 times during the day just to see what I was doing or what I had for lunch. So then I started to, I just thought there was something really weird with him. So I'm like, "So what's up?" And he's like, "Nothing." He's just like, "I like talking to you. You have a great personality."
Have you exchanged photographs?
He sent me some, and I recently just sent him some.
Have you talked about meeting in person?
We've talked about meeting in person. He wants me to come to California. He wants me.
What do your family and friends think?
My mom thinks I'm crazy.
Berserk.
My sister tells me that there are thousands of other men in the world. Why can't you just go out with one of them?
You think he's the man of your dreams, huh?
I mean, he just has all these great qualities about him.
Like what?
He's a very good father. He's very, I mean, like, I can talk to him about anything. We talk for hours
All right.
on the phone.
You be very quiet, and we're going to bring James out. Okay? Shh, everybody be quiet. Oh, come on, Hope, hon. What have they done? Blindfolded this guy, have they? Did they blindfold? James, welcome. You have been a very good sport about this kind of thing since you were blindfolded and tied up in the back room. Always my favorite thing to do with some of our guests. You know you're here today because somebody from your past has a secret crush on you. Are you a guy who's had a lot of romances?
I've had a few.
I may be right, guys. How many is a few, James?
I can't count them.
Ah, Sally's intuition. Do you know which of the thousands of damsels this might be?
You know, I thought about it for a long time, but I really can't.
Can't. I want you to listen to something that'll give you a clue as to who this person might be.
Hi, James. I know you think I'm camping, and I know I told you I'd never call a talk show, but I lied. It's me, Holly, and I'm sitting right next to you, and I thought that if you didn't hear my voice, you wouldn't know who I was.
Take off your blindfold, James.
Hi.
James, Holly has painted the second coming. Here's what I'd like to know. How are you having a telephone romance with Holly, or are you just a really friendly guy who's got nothing to do 3 times a day?
I thought she worked for AT&T or something.
Well, Steve lives in Florida, and
But Dad lives in Florida.
But he's established his career, and he's in a different place, different time in his life. I just graduated college. I'm looking to start, finding a job, looking to start my career out. We're just not at the same times. Our paths just did not cross.
Is Steve still a disc jockey?
Yes, he anchors sports in Florida. And we had a great time together after the show, Sally. We went to lunch. We spent a couple of great days together.
See, she's Cousin Brucey's daughter, okay? Oh. So go ahead. What happened? You went to lunch.
We had a great time. We went to lunch. We went to dinner. We spent a lot of time together. And the romance was rekindled. We started getting those feelings again. But I'm a very realistic person. And I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to just pick up and move to Florida if I don't have a job there. I'm not going to do that for love right now. That's not where I'm at. I need to establish myself first.
All right. I'll buy that. I think that's okay. Do you think there's any hope for you and Steve in the future, or was that it?
Yeah, no, there's a possibility. I mean, I still have a little wild side to me that he kind of doesn't understand. He's a very straight guy. Possibly as I get older, I'll work that out, get it out of my system, and maybe one day we'll get together because he's wonderful. He's a great person.